Hello and welcome to the Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for joining us tonight. After the George Floyd riots in 2020, the left started targeting monuments for destruction that they claim were monuments to white supremacy. Confederate monuments have been the main target and have been destroyed by Marxist thugs. There have been legal battles as well, and no city in America has been targeted as much as Richmond, Virginia, and Virginia in general. But this destruction is not a grassroots movement, and they will not be content with removing just Confederate monuments. This is part of a larger problem and part of a Marxist plan for destroying our culture and our country. Today, our guest is McLean, a founder of the Virginia Council and former vice president. She joins us to tell us the threat we are facing. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Doing great, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's good to have you on, and we got a lot of important ground to cover. I've been looking forward to this because a lot of people think it's just statues, but it's a whole lot more than that. Now, in addition to being a founding member and former VP of the Virginia Council, you also founded the Hunter Classical Christian School. You serve on the board of the Jefferson Council Alumni Free Speech Organization at the University of Virginia. Also very involved in the legal fight to save the statues. You're a busy woman.
I'm a busy woman. But I feel like, I guess this week with Charlie Kirk, we all have to get out and do what we can do because we are under attack. And it's been a really sad week with his assassination.
Yeah, they destroyed statues, but they want to destroy people as well, like Charlie and like us. I mean, that's their goal, and we can't kid ourselves about it. So how did you get involved in all this?
Well, I guess it goes, I had a grandmother that was an artist. My parents, our whole family loves history. We've been in Virginia since 1641.
Wow.
I enjoy history so much. I paint, I sculpt. And I wrote my doctoral dissertation on the monuments on Monument Avenue in Richmond and Petersburg after the war between the states. So that really was such an education. I was able to go to the libraries here and read the firsthand primary sources, letters, from Lee and his wife back and forth, and so many of our generals and all the parades with each of the monuments being raised. That just how you bring a monument up, all the bake sales and bazaars, and it's just such an effort at a time when the South was decimated and hardly had two nickels to rub together after Lee surrendered at Appomattox. They were funerary and memorials to men, brothers, fathers, sons. It was family, and when you lose someone for a cause, which has now, I believe, there's been a lot of perverting and flattening out of the history. It was a much more complicated time. And you have to go back into Congress in the 1850s and understand wool prices and cotton prices and the first Constitution, which I think in your previous guest, you were talking about the original Constitution.
Yep.
And how each state was its own country. So I just began digging. I've always loved to dig into things and go deeper with the history. And when the 2020 mess happened, it was just heartbreaking to have done all the research about how all these, men and women's groups came together to honor the different generals, and then to see them all taken down illegally and then put in the sewer here in Richmond.
Yeah.
So I come to it just as an American girl that loves history.
So the United Daughters of the Confederacy put up a lot of these, right?
They did, and we're very grateful for that. And there's so many beautiful pieces. In Florida, there's a wonderful group, Defend Arlington, and they've been defending statues down in Tallahassee and St. Augustine and Jacksonville and all throughout the South. There's so many Minutemen that have come down from in front of the courthouses. What I believe is that, and we'll get into more of the causes, and we were warned in 1970 and in the early 80s that some of this was going to come, but people didn't really realize it.
Who warned us?
Well, there was a KGB defector named Yuri Bezmenov. So the Bezmenov plan,
Oh,
he got out. He was a Russian. He was trained, and he came over, and a man named Edward Griffin interviewed him, and there they are, right
right.
there. And so the idea was the attack on history here in America was to destabilize our country. You had to detach us from our history, demoralize the people, which led to destabilization, and then the whole goal is to destroy not only the history, but it makes it easier to take over the country and change it. And these are the four stages that you just put up there. And so the first thing we saw it back in the 60s, just all of the cultural norms that
Right.
really were American began to change. And it was the long march through the institution, Antonio Gramsci. Yes, to this slide shows the four stages. First stage, you demoralize, you make people ashamed of their country and not proud of their nation, undermine the Judeo-Christian worldview, which I believe is the real threat. The communists have to eliminate the traditional family and the religion and just take the Constitution. That's really it's a war, a three-part war.
Well, they've been working on all three of those for a long time.
They really have. And I think that we've kind of ramped into, and some of the phases interact. They don't go exactly at the same time, but more or less they build one stage on the other. And we had Khrushchev banged his shoe on the desk and said he was going to take us down without a shot. And then they float memes like, "Oh, if you believe in a conspiracy, but communism is a conspiracy, then you're not clever, you're not smart. If you're just believing in a conspiracy theory." Well, the fact is that is a disarming thing it gets people off connecting the dots and really realizing there are people that have an agenda.
Let's go back just a little bit. We talked about the march through the institutions, Gramsci, and they've really taken over. And this goes back, I think, really in this country, I want to say the 30s. We had some Marxist, communist, whatever, from the Frankfurt School in Germany, and they came over here, and I want to say they were appointed, they became professors at, Columbia, maybe Harvard or somewhere. I think that's part of this. And then just the whole school system, the education system.
Yes.
One of the goals of that has always been, and granted they did it slowly, they didn't do it all at once. I mean, if you look back when I was in school, and certainly when our parents were in school, they weren't really pushing the envelope as much in those days, anything like they are today. And the history was still probably somewhat more intact than it is today.
Right.
Definitely was not anti-American. You couldn't have gotten away with that in the 50s and 60s or even 70s until a little later on. But they have marched. They have. I would say they probably control or have serious influence in all of our institutions.
Indeed, they have. Well said, Dave. The education system, whether it's Howard Zinn's history, the people's history of the United States, which is really a Marxist history book, is used all across our nation. We have revisionist historians like Professor Edward Ayers, who lives here in Richmond, and he's involved with the Society for Social Studies. But it's a twisting and a distorting, and basically the entire Judeo-Christian worldview that really underpinned what our founders gave us, going back, the whole great conversation. That's why I founded a school with classical Christian education. I believe that is the answer. And we're so lucky that Pete Hegseth understands that and sends his children to a classical Christian school and wrote the book, The Battle for the American Mind, with David Goodwin, which I highly recommend.
Okay. Well, now, and so I think it goes without saying these people, the Marxists, are not going to be happy with just getting rid of Confederate monuments.
That's right.
That's in their mind. That's the low hanging fruit.
It is. And actually, the Southern Poverty Law Center, um, which is based in Montgomery, and it really, on one of their websites, well, on the website, they had blacked out all the southern states. They really have to eliminate what we know and love as Southern, because that was a Christian nation that existed for 4 years, or they wanted to be. That was in the Constitution for the Confederate States of America. And it is, as Alexander Solzhenitsyn told us, that this all happened, what happened in Russia happened because men forgot God. They
Right.
forgot Jesus Christ. They, the Bible was taken out. We've had this, I mean, complete, steady march through taking, I guess in 1962, we had prayer out of schools. 1972, the abortion, these are Supreme Court decisions. And it's just kind of continued to shred the very things, there we go, that um, we call American. And so we do have some Paul Reveres out there that are really understand this and are getting their word out. G. Van Fleet, who wrote this book, I think everyone should try to get that. Mal's America. She's a Loudoun County mother who experienced the whole woke revolution. She was a little first or second grade girl growing up in China, and
Wow.
overnight, everyone was divided into oppressed and oppressor. And her family, there they go. Okay, very good. She's a wonderful speaker. We're bringing her to the University of Virginia on the 25th of September. She travels. She's been on Tucker. She's getting the word out, and she's such a fresh a voice and so bright about this because she got out at 26 years old, having bought into all the communist, waving the flags and doing all this. But they took her when she was little, and they took the children out, and they had to just work in the dirt, and they stopped learning. That's one thing when they dumb down the education system, and what you described a few minutes ago, it's just been a slower devolution, taking away the rigor, putting in the self-esteem, uh, pedagogy that, making so many distractions. And then now we have the whole gender ideology, which is just an extreme, uh,
It's
another
insanity. It's demonic and it's
insanity.
insane.
It is. And it's to destroy that traditional family. Our children, they're after our children. That's why the statues are coming down. They are so bent on the revolution, and the whole thing has to do, all their aims, their goals, their destruction has to do with teaching the younger generation something entirely different and having to eliminate the memory of Robert E. Lee, what a fine person he was. He was one of the first to get, his face bashed in at Duke University Chapel as you go in. Then the New Orleans Lee came down. I couldn't believe it because having read and held his actual letters, and, I have family that went to Washington and Lee, and, been in the chapel. They took his where his body is now cut off from view. They do not want these stories for all your audience. They don't want your children and grandchildren to know what really happened.
Right, right. And Lee was a hero. I mean, after the war, he was a hero to, not just people in the South, but there was a lot of people in the North that respected him, and he was respected throughout our country up until the last few years.
Right. And I know many people have been taught to hate the wrong thing. There's something called odoro amare. It's from the Renaissance when our schools were just starting, colleges in England, to learn to order the affections. There are lots of things we can love, but there are some things we shouldn't love, and other things, I guess it's biblical, what will bring you more happiness and a fulfilling life. And I think that that's something that our colleges have forgotten. And anyway,
If we put up
it,
that last slide, I think towards the bottom of it, because you mentioned, is it Zy or Z Van Fleet? Z?
G-Vent,
G Van.
yes,
Okay. on the no the slide before that, you mentioned something about the four olds, and this is part of what
Yes,
Mao tried to get rid of. They tried to eliminate the four olds. Let's talk about the four olds a little bit.
let's do. Yes, she's very strong about, they are the customs, culture, habits, and ideas. Those are the four olds. So your customs, whether it was um, the ladies' tea or um, prayer or everyone going to church on Sundays or whatever, the culture would be we all love and respect a certain amount, the whole Western canon of art. Um, Roger Kimball talks about this in The Rape of the Masters, how, they're throwing tomato soup on these, amazing pieces of art in Western, in regular, museums, then habits. Well, we all know we have certain habits, but they've got to change those. I don't know whether bra burning in the 60s, just anything. It's disruptive. And that is what what Karl Marx also, who dedicated his book to Lucifer, said, the point is to change everything.
Yeah, yeah,
So we've all thought, oh, this is just a new trend, or we'll just, I think many of the women have been sort of sold a bill of goods that, oh, it's just fashion. But the whole idea is to make you forget your mother's and your grandmother's generation.
right. It didn't. Obama said something about the breaking down the old foundation or laying a new foundation. Obama said something about that when he came into
Yeah,
office.
he said his goal was to fundamentally transform the United States of America.
Yeah,
And the woman who said that, his domestic policy chief, is a woman named Melody Barnes, and she's in charge of something called the Karsh Institute at the University of Virginia. She was here in Richmond. She was raised in Richmond. She did her graduate work at Chapel Hill, and it's it's terrifying. She uses the collective. She got two Emmys for the 2020 graduation at UVA because she used the word collective all the time, and or more. And it's they have infiltrated. Some of the tactics are one of the main ones is to infiltrate organizations.
right,
Very, and they bring in they being anyone who is a part of this new worldview.
right.
I know it sounds, believe me, read this book and you will understand that the things we're seeing, there are patterns that have been tried before, and we just need to educate ourselves about them.
Well, ever since we started bringing, since we gave China most favored nation status, and even after 1989, I think that's when we kind of, I guess, upped our outreach to them. But it just seems to me like, and the thought was, well, we can have more, we can have a positive influence on them. That was at least the bill of goods we were sold. But I think, we know that they've stolen a lot of our technology, and we know that they're heavily invested in a lot of our universities. So I think they've actually had more luck changing our society than we have had changing their society, from everything I can tell. Um, there was something else that, well, maybe that train will come back around again in a second. But what was the reaction in Richmond? I mean, Richmond is probably like a lot of other southern cities. It's had a second and third, possibly a fourth Yankee invasion
Yeah.
over the years. But what was the reaction of the people? I mean, it was everybody just, oh well, they're tearing
It
the
was the
statues down.
strangest thing. I cannot tell you. It was, many people who lived here just were shaking their head because Richmond is close enough to what's called the river, which is, a whole series of creeks and bays and, Chesapeake Bay, Rappahannock River, Piankatank. There were enough people that maybe some of the old guard would have a second house, but the whole 2020 situation was like Portland. It was like Chap or Chad's, that zone that they had
Right,
in
right,
Portland.
yeah.
It was much of it was gathered around the Lee statue. People that didn't live here. I went down and saw, yes, there you go, Florida license plates, people from Oregon, people from all over, and then big, slats of wood were delivered there, big flats of water. This was it wasn't really an organic thing. I think maybe the engineers behind it were, because there'd been a lot of talk about Monument Avenue over with the whole museum apparatus here. I believe we have been invaded. There you go. That's the Howitzer Monument down. And it's just tragic. Matthew Fontaine Maury, who was sculpted by Frederick William Sievers, he also did the Jackson monument, but he's got green paint down his face. There you've got this Jeb Stuart statue, which of course, was erected in 1907, and along with the Davis. Davis was the first to come down, and he is now displayed in the Valentine Museum, which is named for the artist that did the sculpture of Jefferson Davis. And he has the curator there, Bill Martin, insists that he needs to still have the toilet paper noose around his neck and all the paint. And we now have another iteration of horror happening because there it is right there. That's going to be sent out to Los Angeles to a museum, an exhibit that's opening in October, where they're going to show our Virginia heroes, people that died defending all of Richmond. Those 5 generals put their lives on the line to defend everyone of every melanated type of skin from an invading army. That's what we call the boneyard. There you see pieces of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument. That's Jeb Stuart's plaque that was on the front of his
So,
statue.
so was this a mob or was this the city taking it down?
Well, the city did. Mayor LeVar Stoney, it was because the mob was there, and then someone put a rope around Davis and pulled him down. Mayor Stoney said it's unsafe. You know how they use health and safety as a weapon. We saw that with the COVID shot. Roll up
Right,
your sleeve. Let me give you a shot. It might give you myocarditis, but we're not going to tell you that. We're taking care of you.
right.
These deceivers, if we don't get back to biblical truth and to Jesus Christ in our schools, and that's why I believe starting a micro school, homeschooling your children, uh, exiting the public school, or making sure you're all over your public school and you know who the school board is and you know who the teachers are. I mean, I'm sure there are very dedicated teachers and some fine schools, but there are so many agendas that come from the top.
Yep.
I don't trust the public schools anymore.
Well, let me just say this because I live in a small county in Tennessee, and I didn't grow up here, but I would say in this town, most of the people, for instance, my kids live here now, so their kids are going to school, and some of the people that they went to school with are being taught by maybe the people that taught them or people that they went to school with.
Now that's great.
But let me tell you now, some of the garbage that I've seen go on, some of the stuff that's come out over the years, our state, just like every other state, has garbage books. And of course, now it's all online garbage.
Yep.
And so our district tells us, well, these are our choices, and it's the state, but they don't stand up.
No.
They don't stand up. They don't say no. And if you call them on it, well, there's nothing we can do. It's the state. You would not believe the stuff in small towns that it's not just Richmond. It's small towns because the garbage is coming down. It's all the same. They're all teaching it because guess what? Most of especially the younger teachers, they all went to colleges that teach this garbage. So they're going to pass it on. And it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if they sit with you in church on Sunday, doesn't matter what, they're still going to teach the garbage. You can't.
It's strange.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get a handle on it because these education graduate schools
Yeah.
take the low performing students, and I hope I'm not offending anyone, but often it happens. I have friends and I hired teachers for my school, and I was forced after a while to try to get the retiring teachers because they remembered more about how to discipline a child, how to really teach. They got into it because they loved the children.
Right.
They could have fun. They were there've been so many ridiculous programs from Columbia Education Graduate School, Harvard education graduate school, and the
Yep.
head of UVA, Jim Ryan, I'm actually very glad he's not there anymore. He led Harvard's education graduate school. Well, how do you move huge swaths of people away from their traditions? You do it through the schools. We're
Yep.
having a revolution through our
Yep.
schools.
Let-
And we,
And that's part of the plan too. Let's, well, we can talk about this slide real quick, but then I want to go to kind of get back
right,
on about that. I mean, this is a Marxist assault
it is.
on our society. And it's not just the statues. They're not going to be happy just to take down Confederate statues. I mean, I think they've already taken down. They even took down, a lot of the left claims him, but they even took down statues of Lincoln. And
They did. Junipero Serra out in California. When not Mark Twain, John Wayne's name came off the Arizona airport.
yeah,
That I was like, whoa. And when Dr. Seuss they hit Dr. Seuss, I said, this is just a pervasive shredding of what we know and love about America. They don't want us to be strong. The
no,
strong white male is the one they go for most, and they don't want local strength.
right.
Um,
They want
you know,
they want yes men, and they want
that's right.
college educated women or indoctrinated women running things. That's what they want.
Right. And that's been a weapon of choice is the women.
Yep.
Because the men want to be good husbands. They want to love their wives and girlfriends. They want to please them, and they're going to have to take their homes, and remember the biblical architecture, how the God's design is what we have to go back to. And Solzhenitsyn said that it's all done by getting us away from biblical truth.
Right.
Old Testament, New Testament. So there we go. And it happened. So as G. Van Fleet witnessed, they took the churches or the Buddhist temples, they burned. You see there in the left slide, old, very revered Buddhist statues were burned. Anything was changed. All the little boys and girls, they got the same haircut. They had to wear the same little shift. You could hardly tell boys from girls. Just like we've got the gender confusion now.
Yep.
It's a plan. That's what I want everyone listening to understand. This isn't just, oh, it's like, oh, Target's doing this now, so we'll just go and that's something new. It's all really thought of.
Right.
And there really is a central planning that is trying to shred us. And that map shows all the statues. Look how so many are in the South. So the Confederates were the low-hanging fruit, and they have to change our southern region and take away our traditions and things because of the Christian element that was mainly here in the South. People were had much, and the Southern soldier. That's why the Reconciliation Monument in Arlington National Cemetery is a very important thing for your audience to understand. I hope everyone will call their their Congress critter, as a friend of mine calls it, their congressperson, and encourage them to restore that. Pete Hegseth said that that's going back, but now we have leftists in Congress putting in amendments, something called the Strickland Amendment, so that no federal money will really be allotted to restore that. And that's a grave marker, and grave markers were.
Yes, great. The Arlington, they need, well, like even here in Tennessee, our governor allowed and our legislature allowed the statue and gravesite of Nathan Bedford Forrest to be removed in Memphis. I mean, it's fortunately it didn't have, it wasn't destroyed like those statues in Richmond, and it was moved to his boyhood home. And it's in a good place now. But the fact that they would do that, I mean, they'll desecrate graves. It was grave desecration when they took down the Reconciliation Monument.
Yeah.
They're going to put it back up, but like you say, do you know when that amendment comes up for a vote, or has it already been voted on?
Well, it's already passed. See, they snuck it through the House. We didn't get enough people. There wasn't. We've got to watch, because the rhinos, the Republicans in name only,
Right.
many of them that don't have any understanding of the full history, nor do they care. They're holding Southern seats.
Right.
They're under, Republican. They haven't fought for that, and that's really, really wrong. Why would anybody? And even Charlie Kirk made a statement. It's part of healing. You don't destroy someone's heritage or grandparents.
Right, right.
It is a sick thing that's going on, and I think the left really saw that he was speaking truth, and that
He was speaking truth on a lot of things, and that's why they had to get rid of him.
yeah. So there's Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and the Gulag Archipelago. We have been warned. We have not heeded the warning, and I just hope we can dig down deep and really get that face time with the Congress people and vote out the bad people and watch your school boards. It's I wish it were a happier story, but it just continues to get worse and worse.
And most people don't even realize that we're under attack. Even most of your politicians, they don't have a clue. These things go on, and so some of these things have been brought up in our state legislature in terms of like the CRT and
Yes.
the whole gender identity garbage, and they pass laws. But in our state, for the most part, there's exceptions to this, but for the most part, the T in Tennessee laws stands for toothless. Because they don't actually enforce anything. For instance, there's certain rules about, they pass certain things about the girls and boys sports, or boys in girls bathrooms. Well, there's a case in Williamson County, which was supposedly a conservative county, where that law is being ignored. But guess what? The great thing is they passed a law to where now the parents can sue them privately. Well, wait a minute. Why should the parents have to sue to enforce a state law?
The idea is chaos. Make everything so complicated. The lawyers get rich. Everyone has a miserable time, because you can basically, as I said, the punishment is in the process.
Yeah.
Just having to defend. We need local strong men like yourself, or we need to get back, and the men should not be cowed, because it's serious. And I don't know. I think we really have to educate each other, and it's about adult education and having dedicated conversations like Charlie Kirk recommends.
Yeah, like I say, he was an amazing guy, and he is. We need more. We need more people
Now,
like Charlie Kirk.
Tennessee has a gifted man, James Lindsay, who talks about. Has the new discourses, his bullets, how you fight woke. He's a mathematician who is you should have him on your show.
I know the name, but I'm not all that familiar.
Critical, Critical Theory, I think, was his book, one of them.
Okay.
So he really drills down into the DEI and the language, how the left uses language,
Yep.
and how clever they are. So he unpacks that beautifully.
And I see this in it's not, I'm sure it's in the schools, it's in the colleges, but it's in business too. It's in other government agencies, and they haven't got rid of all of it yet. Matter of fact, it's so ingrained. That's another thing that you see with this with what happened with Charlie Kirk. All these insane, demonic left-wingers are celebrating. And a lot of them, we find out, are in our government.
Yes.
Even there were some in the military, there were other in government positions. Now, fortunately, some of them have been outed, and they're being fired like they should be fired, okay? And no, that the First Amendment does not apply, okay? First Amendment just says that, the government shall make no law restricting free exercise of speech, religion, so on and so forth. Doesn't say that number one, you don't own your job, number one. Number two, your employer, if you're bad for business, he's got a right to get rid of you. And
Absolutely.
so it shows how bad it is, because you see them from they're in all different categories throughout our government.
Well, I'm wondering
It's
if there's
crazy.
not, with the human resources management, that this revolution has somehow been, people are selected and recruited in a certain way because it just does seem so pervasive.
Well, I'm curious about a lot of these so-called leadership programs, and I'm sure
Yeah.
they have it in Virginia. They got it, like we'll have in Tennessee, leadership Clarksville,
Mm.
leadership this, leadership that. I haven't gone to it. I've read a little bit about it, but I'm betting you money that there's
Oh, yes.
some left wing ideology in there as well. I guarantee you.
I've seen signs to do it. Mentor, and up in Bethesda, Maryland, I walked down their main street once, and in windows, I saw just encouraging young people to come and, like you say, get trained.
So,
So,
what is the status of any of the current lawsuits? Are they
well,
all
we have a lawsuit to hold against the city of Richmond because what was done was illegal. It was lawlessness, and I would love any help that anyone could give. We've got a great team, a wonderful case. We try to also stop these statues from being sent out to Los Angeles, where the place was burning, and the mayor Karen Bass didn't really take care of even her people during that situation. But there's an exhibit. They're not really monument protection laws out in California. So we filed a temporary restraining order in June, but we see how our legal system is being manipulated. We really weren't given even a chance to say when the hearing would be until August 16th, and then they said, well, you come back and really have the hearing on the 26th of August. And at that time, because we had not put the Black History Museum on the BHM on the case, we were just suing the city of Richmond because it's our understanding that the city of Richmond really still owns the monuments. This was not done in a legal way. Long story short, we are still in the fight. We need help with funding that. So if anybody would like to go to www.thevirginiacouncil.org
I think we've
and
got
give
that website.
whatever, $50, $100, it would really help. I've had to raise a lot of money for this lawsuit. I was glad to do it. We have a fantastic plaintiff, Shenandoah Valley Battlefield Foundation. They care about the hallowed ground where so many of our Americans gave their lives. And this just is not, this is American history that needs to be defended. First statues, then people.
Right.
Okay. And we need to know that our children could, they don't have to be in the middle of Richmond, although I did love Monument Avenue with the horses and all the transportation and all the horses that helped build Virginia. I thought it was wonderful to have them there. My whole dissertation talked about the lost cause as a Christian funerary movement. And that is what these revisionist historians cannot have the understanding of these statues be about. But that's what they really were about. They weren't white supremacy. They were virtue supremacy. They were nobility in defending the home
Right.
from an invasion. And that's been so twisted. No one likes slavery. It would have, I am certain, and there were 46,000 free blacks. There were black Confederates.
Yep.
Glad slavery is over. But there were 4 states in the Union that were slave states. There's just there's so many permutations that need to be understood by people and not buried and not canceled.
Well, Lincoln made it clear that the war was not about slavery, in in his inaugural address. Grant was pretty clear that, hey, I'm not fighting for slavery. You could not have raised a division, probably not even a brigade in the North, of those willing to go to fight to end slavery. Like you said, we had 4 slaveholding states that were in the Union during the war. Okay,
Right. West
so
Virginia was admitted
that's right.
as a slave state. So how Lincoln locked up the Maryland legislature.
Yeah,
What if someone did that so that they would not vote for secession? Secession was a right.
yeah, that's what the founding generation believed, and that's what a lot of people north and south believed. And as far as West Virginia, which is my home state, but it's illegally created. It was created out of Virginia. You can't do that without the permission of a state. So the whole thing is, like I said, you got to follow the money on this. That's what the war was about, was the loss of revenue, not just the revenue from, okay, now the South is not here and we're not getting their tariffs. It was the fact that now we'll have southern states with southern ports, and Europe will do trade with them a whole lot more than they will with us. Because if you look at the initial attitude of a lot of the people in the North, even including in New York, they were like, hey, it's their right, let them go. We don't like it, but let them go. And as things got worse, they started having economic impact. They're like, we got to do something.
Change their mind. Exactly. Yeah. I think it was actually the Northeast was going to secede 8 times between 1787 and the war between the states. They threatened secession for different reasons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The war of 1812, and no one ever talks about that.
No. And matter of fact, you brought up the War of 1812. So and I know this. I don't want to get off on this too much, but people need to understand it, because it's been so easy for them. And I'll tell you what doesn't help. Idiots like Mark Levin, idiots like Bill O'Reilly, and V.D. Hansen with their garbage about Lincoln the Great Emancipator, and that's what this. No, that's not what the war was about.
I know.
Not at all. And people need to understand that. And like you say, the people in the North still had their slaves. They made it clear that was not what the war was about. And it was just, once they realized they were going to lose that money, that's when it became an issue. And you mentioned the War of 1812. New England states threatened to secede. And matter of fact, they even nullified a lot of what Madison tried. Madison wanted to invade Canada, and the New England states were like, no, we're not doing that. They didn't provide the troops. They said, we're not going to do that. So, I mean, secession was something that was threatened by the North much more than the South. And nullification was used on both.
Exactly. And, the Republic, the whole war for Texas, just everything. And just encourage people to read. And I think that the truth eventually bubbles up. Tom DiLorenzo does a lot of good work.
Yep. The Real Lincoln. I would encourage everybody to read The Real Lincoln.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And so we really want these beautiful, this fine artwork. I come to it as a designer, as an artist as well. The Lee Monument from Monument Avenue was one of the finest equestrian statues ever created. And, they cut him in half, but, maybe it could be restored.
So is there, the lawsuit you said is still pending, or one of them, or how many?
We're still working on it. We've got, yes.
So when's the next date, the next court date on it?
I believe they're discussing venue on October 9th. So it's going to be a long slog. So if anybody is inclined to try to help with this, again, no donation is too small. I think if people get the word out and go to the virginiacouncil.org, but click for the legal fund, because that goes to help. And we have a great legal team, and in their heart, they know what's right, and they're really good lawyers. It's just a long and expensive fight.
Right. Yeah, and well, before we get to what to do about it, I want to say the people that have taken these statues down, like you say, they have an agenda. We've talked about their agenda, but those people who may be like, well, I just don't care. You're caving in to people that they don't want to just take these statues down. They want to take down everything American, everything about our tradition, certainly anything Christian. They want to take that down. So if you're okay with, a bunch of dead Confederates, I don't care, you've got no argument when they come for Washington, when they come for, oh, by the way, all of our early American heroes, almost virtually all of them owned slaves at one point in time. So if that's going to be the discriminating factor, then we're going to lose everything.
I
So,
know, and that's what they use, and that's that race Marxism,
right.
which I think James Lindsay wrote that book.
Yep.
You need to get that. It's the weaponization of everything, the weaponization of history, of language, of
Right.
the schools, of the gender. They will divide, divide, divide. Now, under Christ, you're unified and come together. It's about the inside of the person, not the outside. And the depth of the character, right and wrong, all these things that your grandparents taught you. Go
Right.
back to the way grandmother did it, the way, John Roseman talked about as far as parenting practice. I really think we're at a very serious place.
Yeah. So what are the key takeaways and what can people do? What's
Well,
other than
I think
donate, obviously.
join a church, a Bible believing church. Um, Start your micro school. Read. I referenced Peter Schweitzer's Blood Money. Understand, and G. Van Fleet's Mao's America. Yes, elections, ballots. Make sure we have honest elections, paper ballots. Um, Fight the massive leviathan of the government. I think that when I mean, we're very lucky to have Donald Trump in the office and some of the team that he's gotten around him. So,
Other than Hegseth, is there anybody else up there in D.C. that's been helpful on this?
Andrew Clyde is someone, he is a congressperson from Florida, I guess. He's a good guy with that. Our Congressman John McGuire, he's a SEAL team uh, leader, and who's up in Congress now. He understands. Defend Arlington is a group. They're always watching what's happening on the Hill. They have a lawsuit as well. But as far as Hegseth has been the best. He's the
Right.
new Department of War, I guess. We had, under Lloyd Austin and Biden, there were so many
Right.
that were done wrong. So, yeah.
So, you mentioned the Strickland Amendment. Who is Representative Strickland? Where's he from? Do you know?
It's a woman, and she is an African American woman from the state of Washington. And again, there are just why would she care about this? It's not at all in her area, but she put this forward. Again, there's just brokering that's happening. I don't know what deals are made.
Now, is this
And
in
I'm
the
sure
NDAA? This is
it's in the NDAA. It needed to come out. And I hope the Senate, I hope that I don't know, is Marsha Blackburn, is she a
yeah, she's
senator?
our senator. Yeah, her and
Senator,
Haggerty.
she really needs to know about this. People, you should not lie about history. It's American history. We're coming up to our 250th birthday, which, by the way, I think that has a lot to do with this. I think the forces, the
The left.
global left wants to redefine America and
Right.
take it and make it theirs.
Right.
And this whole birthday celebration is the opportunity, the big shebang that a lot of this, and I hope Trump, I'm so glad he's in the office. We need to support people like Doug Burgum in the Department of Interior. Get to him, educate him. You don't destroy history. At least Hegseth said that.
Right.
We don't do that in America, especially when they're people's great grandparents.
So this Strickland from Washington State, is she a Democrat?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, of
So,
course.
but I
And
mean,
Don Bacon, who's terrible on heritage things. He's a Republican that v goes all against preserving American history, and he's a lame duck. I mean, he's not coming back, but he's also been a part of trying to thwart and another Virginia Congressman, Don Beyer. That's amendment number 567. They're throwing these in the NDAA so that these things cannot be restored. And so we've got to rely on Trump probably and his team to make sure that the right stuff happens. But I guess this always is the game.
Do you know when the Senate vote's supposed to be?
I do not know that. I know, I don't know.
But you know, the fact that the Strickland Amendment made it through, I mean, we have a majority in the House. It's a small majority, but once again, the GOP allowed it to go through. But you said Bacon. You said Bacon is a Republican. I think he's from what, Nebraska?
Yes.
Okay. Any other bad characters we need to know about?
Trouble, Bacon and Don Beyer. And there is a committee, a preservation committee, and both of those men happen to be on it. See, what you've got is cultural Marxism, going back to Gramsci, you know, however you say his name, Gramsci, that you're going to take America through the culture.
Right.
You're going to change it, change it, change it. So they infiltrate the committees, make certain decisions around the board table, and pretty soon you have a lot of monuments coming down, and there are a lot of deals behind the scenes.
So let me ask you this though: the Reconciliation Monument, didn't they make a deal with the state of Virginia for like 50 years now that
They did. Governor Youngkin, that's where there's some unnamed things that happen. We don't understand why wouldn't they just put it back, return it? But I think that the gift of 50 years to be renegotiated prevented a lawsuit or something. It was a strategic, there are all these things now. And actually, it makes me think of John Adams. Our nation was only formed for a moral and religious people, meaning Christianity. Right. And we have now confused waters. We have a lot of people that have made an idol of money and power, and that's the big thing.
Yeah, the bottom line is their only bottom line.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I hope, I hope that you're successful with your lawsuit, and I hope more people wake up and understand, what's going on and resist this kind of garbage.
Right.
So
I do too. It comes back to family and church, and so we should resolve to guard our history and teach our children well.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you for the opportunity to get the word out and to go to, have people go to the virginiacouncil.org, to the legal fund. It would be amazing. We can put these things back together if we have the means.
Great. So do you have somebody lined up to do that if you were able to?
Yes, we do.
And so your suit is against the city of Virginia, excuse me, the city of Richmond. City of Richmond. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But we want these to be reestablished, whether it's in the Shenandoah Valley or someplace, Jeb Stuart.
Right.
I would like to see him go to Laurel Hill, which is Jeb Stuart's birthplace. It's just such beautiful equestrian art, and these men had courage, and to just see them through one lens that's provided erroneously through the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is full of Marxists, is really wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think most people have woken up to the fact that the SPLC is just a bunch of Marxists.
They should be.
And criminals, apparently, from some of their financial deals. Now, you're going to have on the 25th of September at the Virginia Council, you're going to have Zevan, is it G?
Zevan, actually, yeah. She has spoken for us at the Virginia Forum. You see, that's an advertisement, but she's going to be coming to the University of Virginia to Minor Hall, and it's the Center for Politics and the Jefferson Council are bringing her there. So you could go, if you Google the Jefferson Council, you could get a ticket for that or register to come.
Well, I need to get her on the show because, I'd love to have her talk about what she experienced in China growing up and how she sees that going on here now, because people need to hear that.
She's wonderful, too. She's a great speaker.
Well, hey, thank you for being with us. Just hang in there. Appreciate what you're doing, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's a pleasure.
You have a good one. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. Thanks again to Jonathan and Mary for their financial support from July through September. We really appreciate it. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, tninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We the People of West Tennessee presents Nullification, Past and Present, Tennessee Citizens for State Sovereignty, Tuesday, September 16th, 6 to 8 p.m. Speaker is Danny Blitz with TNCSS. This is at Jackson First Assembly, 1027 West Forest in Jackson, Tennessee. Wednesday, September 17th, Constitution Day, a meet and greet with gubernatorial candidate Monty Fritz from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Keystone Resort, 150 Clubhouse Drive, Loretto, Tennessee. RSVP by calling 931-446-7873. That's 931-446-7873, and I will see you there. Shahram Hadian, Battle for America, the Islamic Sabotage and Our Response. This will be at the White County Republican Party, Courthouse 1 East, Bachman Way, Sparta, Tennessee, September 22nd, 6 p.m. The TFA in Cookeville will host TNCSS Speaker Danny Blitz to discuss nullification September 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. at Logan's Roadhouse, 1395 Interstate Drive, Cookeville, Tennessee. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, 7 p.m., I will be appearing on the Mike Weatherford Show for a special presentation on the Charlie Kirk assassination, including a vigil that will be occurring in Paris, Tennessee. You can find Mike's show on Facebook under the Mike Weatherford Show, as well as on YouTube under My Paris TV. Representative Jay Reedy will be there. Senator John Stevens will be there as well. Next week, we'll have another great lineup of shows. On Monday, September 22nd, we start the evening off with Tiffany Boyd. Tiffany joins us again this time to discuss the dark side of the school choice movement. Is it a globalist scam? And we'll also dig deeper into some eye-opening and shocking relationships between the most unlikely organizations. You're going to be surprised at some of the organizations that are involved with some very bad players. For the second presentation that night, Will Bolden joins us to discuss his intention to run for representative in District 23 against incumbent Lee Lackey Mark Cochran. That is Representative Mark Cochran, who pretty much does what Lee tells him from everything I can tell anyway. You don't want to miss it, so mark your calendars and share us with your friends. Hope to see you then. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.